Hi, my name's Mike O'Brien, and this is Winning the Volume War in Introduction. Now, if you're like me on an average weekend, one of the main things you struggle with is getting your band to an appropriate volume in your sanctuary or auditorium. Now, this is such a pressing issue because for us, what we're doing is we're making rock and roll oftentimes before noon on a Sunday. And for many of us, our churches range from babies, our congregations and our audience ranges from babies to grandmas and grandpas. And everybody in all those age groups has all sorts of ideas about what an appropriate volume is. So to have an informed discussion about winning the volume war, let's talk about all the variables that make up the sound, so that when we have that discussion, it's not just about decibel meters and charts and bringing the master volume up or down, but we have an informed discussion that is much richer in the end as we talk about the volume. So, number one, variable, the musician. Think about the musician. Is the musician a brand new musician that's just learning their craft, or have they played their instrument for years and years? They know space, they understand timing and tuning and time. Think about that. Who is the musician? If you have a whole stage full of younger musicians, the sound's going to be different, and the perceived volume could be very different than if you have seasoned players across the stage. So think about the musician, the one making the sound. Number two, the source sound. Is the source sound an instrument, or is it a voice? Is it a voice that is big and resonant? Is it a small voice? Is the voice a foot or 2 feet away from the microphone, or is the voice right on top of the microphone? Is your hi-hat a $50 hi-hat or $1,000 hi-hats? You're hitting your hi-hats thousands of times throughout the morning. If that's a bad sound coming out of that hi-hat, it will affect the volume and the perceived volume of the band. Number three, do you have a microphone or a direct box? What kind of microphone do you have? What kind of direct box do you have? Do you have a $25 microphone or a $500 microphone? Do you have a cheap passive DI box, or do you have an expensive fancy tube DI box? Think about these source sounds and what they're doing to impact the sound, from all the way from the stage to the listener's ears. Number four, your cables. What kind of cables do you have? Are they thin cables? Are they thick cables? Are they cables that are crossing over electrical fields that are creating buzzes and hums that you can't get rid of, that actually affect the tone and the sound? So think about your cables and what they're doing. Number five, your mixer and your processing. What kind of mixer do you have? Is it an analog mixer or a digital mixer? Is the mixer have great preamps in it, the things that amplify the sound, or does it have cheap preamps in it? So if you have 24 cheap preamps and an old analog board, or even a bad digital board, and all 24 of those preamps are firing at the same time, it's going to give off a very harsh sound that even the best musician, the best source sounds are not going to be able to overcome. So think about those things. Think about your processing, your compression. Do you have compression on many of the channels? Do you have reverb that's making it sound big or small, or delay that might be affecting the way we are perceiving the volume? Think about those things. Number six, your loudspeakers. Where are your loudspeakers? Are they hung on poles? Are they hung in the rafters? Are they reaching the congregation at the most optimal time? Have you had somebody that knows about math and science and architecture that knows where the right placement of those speakers are? There's software, and there's people out there that know exactly where to put your brand of speaker in the right place. Have you asked that question, or are you just winging it and putting them where you think they might go? So think about the dead spots in the room. Think about the spots that might be getting too much coverage and they might be perceiving the music as too loud. Number seven, your room. Think about your room. Does your room have short ceilings or tall ceilings? Does it have drop ceilings? When you clap in the room, does it sound like a huge cathedral, or does it sound like a dead space? Oftentimes in our rooms, we don't spend any money or time or effort adding attenuation or things on the walls or in the corners that will absorb some of the poor frequencies. So the good frequencies are highlighted. Think about your room and what's in your room. And finally, number 8, think about your audience. Is your audience primarily 20-somethings, 30-somethings? Is it primarily youth, or is it primarily a sunshine class that meets in the building? Think about your audience and what their perception of volume might be, and how that plays a role in what we're doing. So we want to have an informed conversation about volume. We want to know that it's not just decibel meters and volume charts and master faders and sound guys that are affecting the volume, but it's all these other things, instruments and source sounds and musicians, cables and mixers and your rooms. Think about all these things as we think about and talk about winning the volume war.